Greetings, fellow humans. I am Hugh.
And I am Man.
And together we are definitely not two kobolds in a trench coat. We enjoy human activities, such as paying taxes,
having existential crises,
and RPG horror stories. Let's see what we've got today.
Today, we have a player who refuses to use any of his character's powers, a paladin who, well, just had to paladin a bit too hard, and a DM who allowed an unfortunate persuasion roll between players.
Player refuses to use his character's powers or even say what they are. By Reddit user 0011. TLDR, Paladin player refuses to do anything with or say anything about his character, barely contributes to role-playing, doesn't even have a full character sheet, and might have the GM on his side. The problem player in the play-by-post campaign I'm in barely posts in character and writes a sentence at most when he does bother posting. He claims it's because his character doesn't have anything to say/do until his secret story arc happens. He refused to use his character's powers at all. When finally pressed on this, he claims that it's because his character hasn't gotten his powers yet, which he told none of the other players about. This was completely unnecessary because all the other characters started with their powers. He's made his character useless when he didn't have to, just to be for his own personal storyline. When I had my character ask his character to use his powers in character, he accused me of metagaming out of character. Then proceeded to backtrack once I pointed out that our characters should have known each other's powers beforehand. Not just that he outright refuses to say what his character's powers are in game, where knowing what other characters can do is incredibly important for resource management. He keeps referencing his character's secret story arc whenever another player asks him a question about his character and refuses to answer, regardless of what the question was. Every other character knows enough about each other to be close acquaintances at least, but he demands his character remains a mystery. He claims the GM approved everything he's done. The GM hasn't said otherwise. He just now threatened to quit the campaign when it was pointed out that his character was dragging the whole party down, and when he finally agreed to show us his character sheet, the vast majority of it was blank. I want to tell him either pull his own weight or quit. But then I look like the bad guy / usurping the GM's authority, and I'm not sure if anyone else in the campaign would back me on it. I've got another GM who I could switch to, but I'd either need to convince the other players to come with me, or find new players. Everyone else is on the same Discord servers as me, so that could result in bad blood being carried over.
Okay, either this player is just too edgy to edge, or he's just lazy.
There is a very fine line between edgelord and lazy.
I mean, I know the DM hasn't said that they've approved it, but also I would just be so curious to message the DM and be like, did you actually approve this? Right now, this character is literally dead weight.
Honestly, yeah. It's bad enough when you have an edgelord or a lazy player, but when they're actively dragging the whole campaign down and not contributing to anything unless it's to do with their personal story, why are they even there?
Yeah, I don't even understand, like, what's his point of even being there. He doesn't even seem to be enjoying himself.
Honestly, OP, before you jump ship, speak to the DM and ask if this can be fixed. If not, find yourself another campaign if you feel like this is dragging down your experience too much. You don't need to suffer for someone else's art.
Paladin overreacts and attempts to kill a player character. By Reddit user V077.
Hey, I've seen this one. This is a classic.
So I joined a D&D group after a long time since my very first try at it, which ended in bad ways as well, but mostly the DM was responsible for that. I don't recall much more, and I don't think I'll post it. So I figured I'd join a new group at a local coffee and gaming shop. The group was just starting up in the first campaign. It was one inspired by isekai anime, think the likes of Rising of the Shield Hero and such. The DM had done all kinds of cool things, making it feel like a tabletop MMORPG. So I was all on board. So with our first session, I asked our party who they're playing. The answers were a priestess, functionally similar to a cleric, with the ability to cast smite in addition, a fighter, a paladin, and a sorcerer. The DM permitted homebrew races and presented me with a list of classes, some from official D&D, and most were homebrew. So I chose the homebrew class of Spellblade, a magic and physical attack hybrid, and I chose the homebrew race that supported both, the Daemon. My character's backstory was that she was summoned by the same royal family who summoned the priestess, fighter, and sorcerer to act as an extra support. Since they knew her real name, though, they were able to command her to do so whether she liked it or not, and had heard stories about how daemons, upon being summoned, were nothing more but tools of war and playthings for the mortals. On a side note, the Paladin was a volunteer who joined them, and once my character showed up is when stuff hit the fan. Nice to have some extra muscle, especially of the magic variety. Sorcerer, indeed. Daemon at that. I heard about daemons, but have never thought I'd get to see one in person. A pleasure to make your acquaintance, Miss Spellblade. Priestess, I look forward to working alongside you. Paladin.
Ugh, heretical beast.
So we decided to spend the first session looking around the town, the priestess quickly growing closest to my Spellblade as she was the people-pleaser character. As we looked through the shops, we bought a new scimitar for my Spellblade as hers was worn, dull, and cracked from using it so much before summoning. All the while, the Paladin is doing all he could to try and get my character kicked out of the shops and tarnishing her reputation among the townsfolk, with sorcerer and fighter thwarting any attempts to do so.
Have we read this one before? I'm pretty sure we've heard the story before.
Yeah, this is eerily familiar to so many other stories we've read.
I know we've said this one before, but it's not the bards, it's not the rogues, it's the paladins who kind of deserve the bad rep, I feel.
Yeah, I don't know what it is about paladins that just attract really problematic players, but they just do. I had nothing against this initially, as I thought that this could add an interesting development where these characters gradually become friends, starting as bitter rivals, so I let it slide. At one point, we see street thugs harassing a traveling merchant who had stopped in town, so we stepped in and our first combative engagement started. As we fought the thugs, Fighter wanted to only go far enough to subdue them rather than kill them, which we all agreed on. As we fought, Paladin did something unexpected.
Is he though?
Paladin.
I'm going to cast Smite on Spellblade.
Sorcerer. What? Why? Me. Why? We're in the middle of a fight. Paladin.
You're locked crossing blades with one, so I have no choice but to cast Smite on you to hit him.
Priestess. You could just hit another thug, though. DM. Just warning, you're a paladin of the goddess of the order according to your sheet. If you cast Smite on someone who isn't causing trouble, you'll lose your bonuses for the rest of this fight, and you're supposed to be a peacekeeper, not an aggressor. Paladin backed down after hearing that, and cast it on another thug, damaging him a good deal, and the priestess whacking the thug on the back of the head with her staff, knocking him out. After we had successfully won the fight with minimal bloodshed, priestess healed up the merchant's minor injuries first, as we ourselves didn't even drop below half HP, and the merchant offered us one healing potion for each of us and a small sum of gold for us to split as thanks. Later, when dividing it up, Paladin chimed in again. Paladin.
I propose Spellblade don't receive her portion of the gold.
Sorcerer. What makes you think that she doesn't deserve a portion of the gold? She contributed just as much as any of us. Fighter. Agreed. Don't forget, she blocked a throwing knife that was aimed right at you. Me, in character. I was ordered to preserve the well-being of these three, Paladin. If that proves to be an issue for you, as a volunteer, you are free to leave at any time, as I have not been ordered to protect you, just these three, and I keep to my own self-preservation in mind. Paladin at this point had had enough, saying that the party was
playing favorites and defending a heretical monstrosity.
Paladin.
I'm going to attack Spellblade.
Okay, be honest. Who didn't see that one coming?
Absolutely no one. This was gonna culminate in some kind of PvP. It always does. DM, you sure you wanna? Paladin.
Yes, I'm sure.
He actually cut off the DM, ignoring the warning from before. Me, in character. Stand down. You have no idea what you're getting yourself into. I attempted to intimidate him into deciding against it. I rolled and get a 15. Paladin rolls and gets an 18, so the intimidation fails. Paladin goes for the attack still. After a bit of fighting and taking damage, he got some serious punishment. Paladin.
I used the bonus from my goddess to heal me.
DM. You can't do that. Paladin.
Why not? I'm under the goddess's order.
DM. Yes, but you are the aggressor here. You don't get any bonuses from her if you do that. I warned you about that while you were making your character and during the fight against the thugs, and you cut me off before you decided to fight Spellblade. This really is just your fault at this point. Ultimately, the Paladin character was slain by a heretical beast, fittingly by beheading. In the Paladin's last moments of awareness, my Spellblade told him, "Only the self-righteous use their gods and goddesses to justify their selfish actions." Paladin's player angrily huffed, "Why are we letting a demon into our party?" DM, "Demon?" Everyone looked at each other confused. Sorcerer's player, "I'm afraid you're mistaken. Spellblade is not a demon. Spellblade is a daemon. There is in fact a difference." And Sorcerer explains the difference between daemon and demon. Paladin's player, "Well, the character's too overpowered." Note, my character was nearly killed by him towards the end of our scuffle. Priestess intervened and healed my character, and we had given Paladin's player multiple attempts to stop the PvP and reset the scene, but he refused, insisting on trying to kill my character. DM, the character's primary stats are strength and charisma. Spellblade uses charisma for magic power and strength for physical power. You chose a class that had power bonuses that came with the conditions that you chose to risk it. If you want to make a new character, we can have them appear before the session is over. Paladin's player decided just to dip out in a huff, so we continued the session and are still playing. The campaign has been a lot of fun, and the tales of the self-righteous Paladin has become a bit of a joke among us. Thanks for reading. Well, 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 if it isn't your consequences that you absolutely deserved coming back to get you.
Oh yeah. The big saving grace with this story is the DM, that they were so effective at reining in the paladining too hard.
Exactly. This is actually a really good example of how to just be firm with a problem player that wants to cause chaos like that. You're just like, just so you know, there are consequences for your actions. I think it's a good thing that he did have those like bonus takeaways, because otherwise it would have been much worse.
This is the wonderful thing about the classes that have some kind of patron or deity. Your paladins, your clerics, your warlocks. You can always threaten the players with taking stuff away from them if they start acting like a problem. Sometimes it's a means of reining that behavior in, but sometimes it can be a fun role-playing tool as well.
I just love that in the end it turns out that it was all just a misunderstanding of words, that the paladin was like, this is a demon when it's actually a daemon, which I don't actually know the difference. I tried to look it up, but I think because it's a homebrew race, I will never know. He's like, it's a beast, it's a heretical beast. And then it turns out it's not anything that he thought that it was. And he's like, it's overpowered anyway.
Couldn't admit his fault at the end, like any true paladin. DM allows player to roll Persuasion to force all other players to give him all of their money, by Reddit user Lamar in Shades. Just before a short rest, a warlock who had developed a reputation for harebrained schemes and general silliness stated that he wants to persuade the table to give all of their money to him. He didn't provide much for an actual argument, simply stating something like, "You should all give me your money, I will keep it safe." The DM, this is a 5e campaign, told him to roll Persuasion, which he did, getting a high roll. I think it was a 17. 3 players within earshot were then told to roll Persuasion, and 2 of them came up short, including me. The DM told us that our characters were persuaded, and that we relinquished all of our gold to the warlock. I have a fundamental issue with this. I don't necessarily have a problem with the PvP aspect of this, as we had already engaged in some mild physical skirmishes and headbutting amongst the party. But I think that the reason to roll anything within the party should be to simulate something that can't be acted out well, and persuading the party can and should be acted out. Obviously it is a different story if the player in question is using an actual spell like Charm. And even if we accept that such a thing could happen via a roll, I feel like the roll to resist the persuasion should have been made at advantage or with a significant bonus, as getting someone to give up their money for no reason should be a very difficult task. In this case, I was also wary of the warlock due to previous interactions, so I feel that I should have received an additional bonus due to being naturally less likely to view the warlock's suggestions favourably. This is the DM's first campaign and the second one I've ever been a part of as a player. Half the table has never played D&D before, so sessions are very slow as we figure stuff out, and in general he is doing a fantastic job. This was our 3rd session and I am really enjoying my time at the table. It's just that this one incident made my blood boil a bit.
I mean, I agree with OP in that it shouldn't have been easy for them to give up their gold. I do think that the person trying to persuade them should have rolled with disadvantage if they were going to do it with a roll. It's not like they were strangers. They all know each other, so they're more likely to be more suspicious. And yeah, giving up your gold to somebody isn't necessarily going to be an easy task.
Yeah, persuasion rolls should not be a thing between party members on outright things. That's entirely down to the roleplay. Giving someone all your money as well should be a lot higher of a DC than 17. As OP says, that's a massive act that even if it was someone you trust, would require a very high roll. And since they had reason to distrust the Warlock, this would have put it above a 25, maybe even a 30 DC roll, even if it was an NPC.
Yeah. I feel like the DM, since it's a new DM, that maybe they were like, well, we can just roll and have that decide things. And I've seen that with DMs before. Somebody actually did a post mentioning it. Like, it's just a lazy thing that they feel like DMs do instead of dealing with the confrontation of just being like, well, just roll for it and then set like a stupid DC. Only they didn't set a stupid DC.
Yeah, the fact that this is a new DM does make sense, but will necessitate a discussion at the table to say that these kind of roles shouldn't happen going forward.
I would say, OP, I would message the DM first and just be like, this happened and I'm not really okay with it. I think we need to talk about it as a table and establish some ground rules around party persuasion and that sort of PvP type stuff. Hey, Hugh.
Yes, man.
Why can't you ever ask for a dwarf to pay for drinks?
Why can't you?
Because he's always a little short.
And with that, we have definitely not been two kobolds in a trench coat. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and make the necessary sacrifices to Tiamat. We'll see you next time.